Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crystal Confab, our weekly get together where we confab about a different crystal. And this week we are going to dive into the incredible and rare magic of blue barite. I am, of course, joined by the fabulous panel of Ashley Levy and Adam Barralet. How are we today?
I'm excited to be talking about a bit of a rare crystal because sometimes the rarer crystals, there's not a lot of content out there. So it's going to be a great one to talk about. What about you, Ashley?
Yeah, I agree. These are the kinds of things that, people will often ask about because there's just no resources. So I love getting to do these episodes in addition to the ones we do about the sort of tried and true ones.
Very true, very true. And this is a really good week to be talking about blue barite, especially because it is a blue color. And thus, I find it works really well with the throat chakra because, as many people are probably aware, they're probably seeing on their social media, it's Mercury retrograde. So let me talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde. First of all, what is a retrograde? Well, what it looks like in the sky is that a planet slams on the brakes and starts going backwards in the sky. It's actually not. That's an optical illusion just because we're on one side or the other side of the sun and so on. But what our ancestors noticed is whatever planet goes into retrograde, while it's in retrograde, whatever it governs, it takes its help away. So I like to think of the planets as being like our parents, and they kind of go on holidays for a little while. So we know that Mercury goes on holidays for 3 to 4 weeks at a time, 3 to 4 times a year. So during that time, we have two options. And unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of focus on the first one. The first one is fall on the floor and cry and blame everything on Mercury because everything goes wrong. However, what I'm hoping to instill with you today, and I think blue barite is a perfect crystal for that, is option number two. You're at home by yourself for your first time. Now, you can either burn the house down or you can put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants and you can learn how to do things better. So, what we traditionally do find throughout Mercury retrograde, yes, back up your electronics. Yes, short trips like car trips can go a little bit wrong, so you want to leave earlier. If you're traveling by air, definitely allow extra time and that type of thing. But with communication, there'll be breakdowns. There'll be misunderstandings. Now, this can be verbal, this can be written, this can be text message, contracts, all those different types of things. And that's why you're often recommended not to sign a contract during a Mercury retrograde because you might misread it. Just take a bit more time if you do have to. So, this is our opportunity. When things go wrong, we can either blame someone else, including a bit of rock floating around in our solar system, or we can go, what's the lesson here? What I love about the throat chakra is that the throat chakra for us, it has the ability to form bridges of peace or create, bridges of war, the way we speak. Now, we know that Mercury and all the other planets are going through the 12 zodiac signs. So this Mercury retrograde is in Sagittarius. So what can you expect? So normally Sagittarius in its good mode is very happy, very collaborative, it's like the party starter, really joyous and optimistic and exploratory. In its bad form, though, it can be a little bit kind of like someone who's had one drink too many or a few drinks too many at the party, a bit blunt, a bit blurting things out, a bit insensitive in that way. So kind of look for yourself and be aware that other people may be blurting things out, saying things insensitively, not really emotionally relating to other people in other ways. How do we sort this out? Well, when we know what's happening astrologically, just like we know the weather forecast, we pack an umbrella, we pack the right crystals. And this is why we're talking about blue barite. So there are lots of great throat chakra crystals, and I'm sure you could personally name many, many, many. But what I've found with blue barite is it helps to up level your communication. Really, really great. And we talk about using crystals for protection or attracting love into your life. But I don't know if you've noticed that sometimes when you're wearing a crystal, it just changes how you feel. I know another crystal from Greenland called Concordicite. When I wear that, I actually notice my posture improves. And what I notice with blue barite is that this changes the way you communicate. It kind of up levels it. And especially one thing it's really, really great for is it's great for allowing you to adjust how you communicate in different situations. How we talk to our partner, friends, kids, colleagues, a superior, we need to be able to modify that. And blue Barite really, really helps you to do that. And if you are feeling nervous about maybe speaking to a superior or maybe to someone you're interested in romantically, blue Barite's a really great one to help you go, how do I choose the right words for this situation? So I'm going to be donning my blue Barite throughout this Mercury retrograde to really, really help me navigate through that process and learn lessons on how I can become a better communicator.
Adam, let me ask you a question. I have heard of this thing called Mercury's shadow. Can you tell us like a little bit about that? It's supposed to be like the period just before and just after Mercury retrograde, where things are still a little, they're kind of ramping up or they're just winding down, where it's gone direct, but it's still a little weird. Would that be a good time to continue working with Blue Barite, do you think?
Yeah, a retrograde, just like the full moon, isn't like it happens on that day and it comes off on that day type of thing. It's more like a wave. Now, again, for another analogy, I do find that Mercury retrogrades are very much like splinters. It hurts going in the most and hurts coming out the most, but it can be a little bit painful throughout and a little bit painful after as well, type of thing. So different people will be impacted by different retrogrades and different based on their personal astrology as well. So I wouldn't go, oh, right, it's over. It finishes halfway through December. It's over. Okay, get rid of the blue Barite. See how the communication's going. And you'll probably find, no, I think it's fine now. Now I can take it off, or now I can stop carrying it, or now I can stop, pardon me, meditating with it in that time. But yeah, that shadow don't just think it's an on and off switch. It's a wave that comes and goes.
But what I also sort of hear you saying is Mercury retrograde isn't something we have to be fearful of. We don't have to cower under the table. We don't have to like ostrich ourselves and put our heads in the sand. It can actually be sort of a gift, sort of a time to review things and make sure that we're like, taking care of things that we need to do.
Exactly. It is actually a golden opportunity. When you talk to anyone who says, what's the key to a perfect relationship? Communication. And so 3 or 4 times a year, we get this little snippet where we get to practice, evaluate, and improve the way that we communicate. All the other planets go into retrograde for a lot longer. The outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and so on, it's normally for 3 to 5 months, for a big chunk of time, once a year. Mars does it once every 18 months, and Venus is a bit erratic as well. But Mercury, we get these lessons throughout the year. Just go, hold on, how are you communicating? And I think with a partner is a really great place to look at, we're probably a bit more relaxed how we communicate with our partner. And this is where you can really learn where you can be maybe a bit snappy, a bit intolerant, a bit blunt, a bit inconsiderate, and those type of things, and improve and create those stronger bridges of peace.
I've literally had all of that happen on a holiday with my husband during Mercury retrograde. That was, we had a cyclone that meant we couldn't go to certain locations. We had lockdowns that happened in Perth, which meant we were stuck where we were. We were in a caravan, so we were on top of each other, and we had to really go, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is what I need right now. I'm not happy, or I am happy. And we had to change our plans. We had to rebook things. And if we weren't being clear and honest with each other, I think we might have actually killed each other in that little van.
Yeah. And that's the golden opportunity of the Mercury retrograde. And do you know what? You don't have to take the lesson that comes with a Mercury retrograde or any other planetary or asteroid retrograde as well. But guess what? Next retrograde, the lesson will come through again. So people generally that love crystals are interested in spirituality. They're interested in evolving. And it's not necessarily about getting to the 12th dimension and connecting with the Grand Poobah guide and all that type of thing. It's about what we do here on this planet and how we can learn those lessons. And every retrograde comes with a different lesson. And, we'll cover them throughout the podcast episodes as they come up. But, Mercury retrograde, I think, is an absolute classic one that we can all really lean into. So hopefully those that are listening or watching this will kind of go, okay, blue Barite's my crystal for this one. Keep it close to the throat chakra, meditate. It's great if you can get it in a pendant form, or, sometimes you get little pieces that you can kind of bind or something like this. This is a beautiful piece made by a beautiful lady in Australia called Ofra Messiah. She's kind of string wrapped it, and I love it, kind of thing. So it's a really, really beautiful one to keep near the throat as much as possible to help improve the way that you communicate in different situations. But the other thing about Mercury retrograde as well is it's not just about how we talk. Mercury also governs the mind as well. So that can be quite interesting during Mercury retrograde. It can be a little bit hard to think. Kyle, I know you really like blue barite for how it kind of helps our thoughts, yeah?
Absolutely. For me, blue barite has been really about expanding the thought process, how we can think, how we can absorb information. For me, it came at a time just after I'd gotten my gemology degree, after I'd finished sort of expanding my mind in the scientific realm. I was then able to connect a lot more to the spiritual and esoteric realm and invest more in that. And it was kind of a really great partner to absorbing and integrating that information. And I found this piece is beautiful. I don't know if you're watching or listening. Those that are watching, this is a beautiful soft blue piece that comes from Spain. And my connection being half Spanish is like, I'll get a crystal just because that's where it's from. And I wasn't buying this crystal because of its energy, and I had no information about it when I bought it, because as we talked about at the start, there's not that much information about barite energetically out there. So I bought it because of a collector's energy, and it was through sitting with it that it was basically allowing me to slow down. I actually have my Mercury in Sagittarius, so this Mercury retrograde will be lots of fun for me, I'm sure. But my MO and sort of normal state of being is go and do and speak. And like, it has taught me so much about being less reactionary, which is so important during Mercury retrograde, is actually listening and hearing and understanding that other people are experiencing different things and other people are coming from different points of view, and how we are expressing to each other is all part of that big picture and that big puzzle. And as I've gone through, I found myself allowing blue barite to sort of, whenever I work with it, it pulls me out of myself. It detaches me from my physical self, and it helps me to go, look at all of this. Let's start to bring in all of this. Let's start to look at where all of this healing journey is actually coming from. Let's look at where all of this anger and frustration is actually coming from. Let's look at where the journey to get you to this point in time has actually, like, it's so much bigger than just yourself. It's so much bigger than just what you've done. And it's so much more than what you've been going through. It's like opening the big library and going, look at all of this. Like, there is so much out there, but you still have to use it with intention. You still have to focus, and you still have to go, this is what I'm going to focus on. This is what I'm going to look at. It's not going to like fix everything. I don't like, it's not like I'm going to like, look at this, it's all fixed for you. It's like, look at this. How can you now deal with it better? How can you now, knowing that it's a bigger picture, knowing that it's more than just what you're seeing in front of you in the physical realm, how can you now express yourself, and how can you now come into the situation? How can you now be more graceful, be more patient, be more proactive, if that's what's required of you? Because it's not just about being calm all the time with blue barite. I find blue barite can be very sharp and pointed and direct when is necessary, and you can see that with the way it grows. Like, it's literally blades. Come on, any crystal that grows in a blade, danburite, topaz, they cut through things. And I find blue barite really cuts to the core of the truth of what's happening in your life, if you are willing to open yourself up to it. And I find it can, like, it's like a professor that you respect. It's like a teacher. It has that like experience. It comes with wisdom. It comes with gravitas. It's one of those crystals that has weight behind it. Like, I don't know, I think Celestite could be a sort of similar, because it has that weight to it. You feel it, but energetically, it has weight to what's happening with it. And I find these crystals that feel heavier, garnet being another one, it's like it adds weight to what's going on. Yes, Ashley.
Kyle, have you ever found like a specific way that you've really connected with blue barite or been able to work with it to help you sort of tap into that attribute specifically? I'm just curious because I feel like, when you said, especially it's sort of like a professor that you really admire, kind of being a little bit of a mentor, a little bit of a guide. Again, can't do the work for you, but can maybe show you the path that's ahead. Is there a way that you've been able to connect with it or like use it, a grid, a layout, meditation, anything like that that has really, I don't know, kind of facilitated that for you? Because it sounds like that was like there's experience talking there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like that sort of professor energy. It's like, I'm going to give you an assignment. Here, like, here's some questions to answer. Like, go and ask yourself these questions. Go and, like, it basically was like bringing stuff to light that I hadn't even thought about, bringing stuff to my attention that I didn't realize. And the question everything thing that has come with it, ironically, my dad passed not long after I got it. His motto to me growing up was question everything, even what I teach you. And like, so that has like come through again, and like I'm doing it again, and it's like question everything, question what you're saying, question what you're thinking, question what is being shown to you in a way that is not like paranoid, but like, why am I seeing this? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Why is this person reacting the way that they're reacting? Why is this um, situation all of a sudden being brought to my attention? Oh, because it's Mercury retrograde, and that's the time when things often come back from the past. And so that whole understanding thing that comes with blue barite is perfect for Mercury retrograde. For me, like sitting in the morning and going, okay, today I'm going to tackle XYZ. I know it's Mercury retrograde. I know there's going to be communication and travel issues, probably. So I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be reminding myself to breathe. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my phone and I'm going to set myself 3 alarms during the day. And each alarm is interspersed so that I stop for 10 minutes and I take myself outside and I check in with myself and I remind myself, because blue barite being like a wind air element, Mercury being wind air, like it's all aligned. If you can be outside in the fresh air and out of that stuffy office, out of that stuffy room, and actually like take a fresh breath, drop a shoulder, you'll feel so much clearer. You'll feel so much more connected to yourself. And you'll be like, oh, I can actually figure this out. Like, I find blue barite is a great one for helping you to strategize. If you need to plan, if you want to make a vision board for what's coming up, if you want to like create a business plan, if you want to do one of those 1, 2, 5, 10-year plans for your life, I find blue barite can really expand and help you to go, okay, this is what I can do now. By this stage, I'll be able to do more. By that future, I'll be able to do more. And it helps to actually break things down into bite-sized chunks so you can actually see what you can do and what's like out of your control. And you actually need to let it go because that's down the line thing.
As a side note from what you just said there, I think it's really interesting. I think about when I get up in the morning and how much of the world around us is cultivated and tells us what to do. So if you think about it, we open Spotify and it tells us what music we're going to listen to. We go onto Netflix and it recommends the TV shows we should watch. I listen to a news podcast every morning and they tell me what news I need to know about. And our social media algorithms obviously show us different things that it believes we need to see. Now, I'm grateful for the algorithms. I know some people bag them, but I want to see cat videos. I don't want to see monster truck videos. So I'm glad that it is cultivated towards me type of thing. But sometimes we do have to think for ourselves and question everything, even though social media and the algorithm are sending us things that it believes we want to know. It's really interesting. I even watched between mine and my partner's algorithms. They are very, very different on our social media. And it's really interesting the facts that are coming through for two different people. So I think regardless of what's being shown, blue barite would be a great one to just have on that daily basis. And like your dad said, question everything.
Absolutely. It's that like ability to create your own order when things are chaotic, when things are mad, when there's all this stuff going on. Like, it doesn't really matter. You can find your way. You can figure it out. You don't have to know. You can question as you go along and you'll create that path for yourself. You'll be able to look back and go, oh, I actually did the thing. I actually have gotten further along than I thought I did. And it's because I didn't sit there and go, why me? I don't know how to do anything. It was like, how can I? What can I do? What do I not need to do? All of that has created so much progress and steady progress. Because for me, that's the other lesson is like, uh, it's not like that is not a real path. Like that is, the wavy path up and down. Like it's not a straight line. You're going to have ups and downs, ebbs and valleys and troughs, and it's important to embrace all of those.
What about
I
yourself,
love,
Ashley? Oh, go
oh,
on.
I was just thinking, I love this idea of question everything. And like you said, like not in like a way that's, I don't know, like super skeptical or anything like that. It's just like I've been working with a spiritual teacher this year for a while, and she calls this get curious. So she says, like, let's get curious about that. And like that's something she asks me over and over and over again. If I'm like, hey, I had this experience or this happened, well, let's get curious about that. And I just love that so much because it gives you that permission to sort of pause and reflect, which like goes along so well with this Mercury retrograde time. Like, let's just take that breather. Let's kind of review and reflect. And this is one thing that I love about Blue Barite because when we're in that place where we can sort of slow down and catch our breath and really just become aware and get curious and evaluate what's going on, it can really help us see the path forward. Even if we're not necessarily taking action toward that right this minute, it gives us that little time to sort of press pause, maybe even press the reset button or the rewind button a little bit, because sometimes you kind of need to reposition yourself before you continue to move forward. But I find that this is a crystal that is an amazing companion for decision making. So if you find yourself sort of at a crossroads when you're in that pause and you're like, you know what, actually, I don't like where I'm headed, or yeah, this feels great. I'm going to keep going this direction, but what do I want to make sure that I'm doing along the way? Like it just cultivates this sense of awareness that we don't get in real time, like with other crystals, like we do with this stone. I feel like there's just something that allows you to be so present and so clear and really ask yourself a lot of important questions. Do the reflection about some of the big picture stuff, not just the right now stuff, but where do I want to end up? What would make me happiest in my life? What brings me joy? How can I cultivate more of that in my day to day? And so I think a lot of times when we're faced with the big life choices, the big life decisions, where you find yourself asking the question, is this right? Is this the right choice to make? Is this the right step to take? This is where Blue Barite is amazing for a few reasons. First, I feel like it invites us to call in a support network. Because so often when we're faced with those big life choices, we feel like we have to do it on our own. We feel like, well, it's my choice. So I have to make it. I have to live with it. I have to deal with it. And like, we don't actually need to do that. Like, we can reach out to people in our support network, our community, our friends, our family, our partner, and go here. Here's what's going on for me. This is what's happening. And again, that really comes down to that communication, like you were talking about, Adam. Like, communication is sort of at the root of all this. When we can communicate our needs, when we can communicate our fears or concerns, when we can communicate what is just sort of alive and present for us, it not only helps us get more clarity about all the things that are floating around because we're speaking it, we're giving voice to it, we have to untangle it somewhat to be able to communicate it to others. But then we also get the benefit of having those trusted people in our circle be a little bit of a sounding board, maybe help us see things that we would have otherwise overlooked or missed, to really talk it out and have that time where we're untangling all the threads so we can see them clearly before we just start pulling frantically and trying to make decisions. And I think this is why people get so afraid of Mercury retrograde, because they're trying to just like bulldoze their way through it and pull on these, super tangled threads to try to make sense of it, when really we just need to sort of step back, maybe zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole thing and figure out how to untangle the knots and figure out how, like, which thread do I need to move more strategically rather than just diving in and taking action. And again, that's where this communication, this support from others really comes into play, because you might be looking at only the yellow threads and maybe someone else is like, actually, it's the red thread that's the problem. And that can be so liberating to just have that kind of feedback and support from others. And Blue Barite does this on its own. I feel like it just pushes us to be more open, more communicative, to reach out for support, even if it's something that we're not accustomed to doing. So even if you're like I have to figure it out for myself kind of person, let this be a time where you kind of soften into being held a little bit, because we all need that from time to time. And I think this is a great time period to do that during Mercury retrograde, but also letting Blue Barite be that supportive companion, because sometimes reaching out for help is scary, right? So many of us feel like there's a fear of rejection. Well, what if I reach out for support and this person can't give it? Or, like there's so many things that come up, even subconsciously, that we don't recognize, that hold us back from doing that, from reaching out, taking that step. And that's where Blue Barite, it just helps us kind of soften and relax into that, which I really appreciate. So if you find yourself at one of those crossroads, or if you just feel things sort of shifting and changing as you're slowing down and reflecting over this time, reviewing your life, getting that sort of bird's eye view, you might find that you're faced with some big decisions. And so not only does Blue Barite help you reach out to people in that support network as you go through this process, but it also brings a lot of clarity. It also helps show you alternative solutions, because sometimes we think the choice is A or B, and really it's A, B, C, D, or E. And there are things that we wouldn't have considered. And I think this connection with the air element, the intellect, with clarity, helps us problem solve in a way that we might not otherwise do. I think it just offers this shift of perspective. And like Kyle was saying, it also has this sharpness. There's like this sharpness of wit that comes from working with Blue Barite, this sharpness of intellect that happens that lets you sort of, I don't know, step into a little bit different way of approaching things so that you can kind of cut through the things that are unimportant. I feel like sometimes when we feel overwhelmed by a decision, is because we have so much information. And that Blue Barite just kind of slices and dices away all the things that are there, but they're not really part of it. So you can get down to the core of what is truly, the deciding factor of the thing. And that is what I think helps so much. So if you have your Blue Barite crystal, hold it in your hands, do some visualization work. And, if you're not a particularly visual person, maybe you speak this aloud so that you can like act on it and hear it. Like there are so many ways to do this, but visualize all the potential outcomes of this decision and think it through. Okay. It really does help to say this. And this is where speaking with another person, someone in your circle, is really helpful. If I make choice A, my decision, then probably what would happen is this or this. And not that you're necessarily guessing outcomes, but you're more guessing outcomes of how will that make me feel? What will the impact be for me? Not how is that, and I mean, of course, there are like, how would that impact other people? We need to consider that, right? But we're not necessarily making a decision like, oh, if I take choice A, I will definitely get offered that job. Like we can't know that kind of thing. But it's if I make choice A, I will know that I put myself out there and tried to get that job, and it will make me feel great that I tried, even if I don't get it. You know what I mean? So think about how that's going to unfold for you in each of those circumstances, and then let yourself have a category for other or something else. And I had this amazing intuitive who used to work at my crystal shop many years ago. And whenever she was faced with a decision, she would go through these different options. Well, I could do A and this might happen, or I could do B and this might happen, or something better. And that was like her key. She always left room for or something better. And that's something that always stuck with me. And I feel like Blue Barite helps us open the door to that too.
Actually, playing around with a couple of things that you shared there, I really love that idea of rather than question anything, let's get curious. It really that playful kind of nature of the word curious takes away that kind of paranoia of questioning everything type of thing, and also reaching out to people in our circle. Do you think Blue Barrett's a really great one to kind of sit with? Because I think we even have to be curious with who we talk to sometimes, because obviously family and friends sometimes have their own agenda or their own opinion that may override what is for our best as well. I think Blue Barrite gives you the confidence to reach out to people that might actually be an expert in something rather than if I need to make a cake, I'm not asking my partner because they're not going to know very much about it. I'm going to ask someone like my mother who knows how to make cakes. Do you know what I mean? So do you think Blue Barrite might be a really nice one to go outside, like Kyle said, pause and go, okay, who could I get curious with?
I love that, honestly. I think that's a great suggestion because so often it is also that feeling like we don't have someone who could help us that also stops us from reaching out because so often we do turn to our mom or our partner, and maybe that's it, maybe a brother, a sister, a best friend, something like that. But let yourself expand a little bit. Kyle was talking about this expansion that happens. Let that sort of expand. Let your network expand. Who do you know? Or maybe ask your mom, your partner, your brother, your sister, like, do you know anyone who could help me with this? I was just going through something a couple weeks ago and I was more like venting to my mom about it. And she said, oh, uh, actually, my husband's nephew does that. He totally does that. Do you want me to connect you? I didn't know that. I was just kind of needed a vent, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So let yourself, yeah, get curious about who might be able to offer some support, some advice, some encouragement, some information. Like Kyle was saying, the crystal's not necessarily going to do the work for you, but it can help support you as you gather some of the pieces before you go forward with that decision making. And Kyle, I think you wanted to say something too.
Yeah, it's basically allowing yourself to know that you don't know all the possible avenues. And my favorite thing that I like to say to the universe and my guides and those that are watching out for me and my best and highest good, I give you permission to direct me wherever it is that I should be going that I can't see, or bring to me the options that I have no idea are out there. And I know that they are coming from my guides because there are certain things that I always look out for, and I've developed that relationship. So I know that I can like go, okay, I don't know everything. This is what I'm going to do because this is what I need to do. And I need to pay my rent and I need to make sure that I'm doing this. And this is all I can do because this is what's on my plate in my life. I give you permission to bring it to me. And it will be through those conversations that you're just having, that those ventings, those just, you will trip over it. And it's like, bam, there you go. And it's like, oh, thank you. I actually just needed to not think about it for a while. I actually just needed to stop. And that's the thing. Mercury retrograde is 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. Like it passes so fast. Like chill.
I want to ask you a question because I find this really interesting what you just said, but have you found that that takes kind of cultivating that relationship with your guides because that's a great deal of trust you have to be comfortable and confident and feel safe to kind of sometimes turn it over and have that level of like acceptance and working together with your guides where you're just like, okay, these are the things that I can see, but if there's anything else I'm missing, like you have my permission to guide me in that direction. Like how, and I know that this is probably a big question about like, how was that journey for you? But like, is there anything you could point someone to, like something concrete that they could do to kind of try to cultivate a bit of that? Because I find that idea so helpful and comforting.
For me, this is where like the journey of our like healing ourselves as we go along, this is where we transition from healing the inner child to healing the inner teenager. For me, Baryte is that time because the teenage years is where we are absorbing and learning, but then learning how to use what we're learning. Those late teenage years. And for me, Baryte takes me back to my enthusiasm that I had for the world. And it's like if you have that open enthusiasm and excitement, but also curiosity, but also ability to stop and question things, you can explore things now with an adult wisdom and like really get into things. And those that are teenagers, those that are younger and listening, good on you. You're ahead of me by about a decade. So you're going to be so much further along as you are getting curious on yourself and your journey and being able to know that like everything that's happening right now in front of you isn't everything. And the ability to go, okay, I don't know everything. I'm just going to do what's in front of me and try and live. And I think that's like, I'm a very Sagittarian. I've talked about this previously. I think those 5 placements allow me to just go, stuff it. I'm just going to do it. Like that risk averse thing. No, I'm not. I'm risk into. And so that ability to just push myself has always kind of been there. I've had to rediscover it a lot throughout the years where it's ebbed and flowed, but it's been about going, teenage curiosity, wanting to know, wanting to experience, wanting to learn, but also wanting to use it for your best interests moving forward.
And I think we're really kind of tackling on the other aspect that Blue Barret's really great for. It's great for communication between human to human, but I think it is really great for communication between you and your guides, you and your angels, you and the gods, you and Mother Earth, whatever aspect of spirituality you want to reach out to. And I think for some of us, this may be a really good thing to nurture with Blue Barite as well. My amazing astrology teacher said, I can't remember what she's reading in my chart, but she said, there's going to be times in your life, Adam, when you just don't feel like there's any person on this earth that totally gets you or is totally knows how to support you. And I think for many spiritual people, sometimes being a bit of a black sheep, sometimes we're like, sometimes they're just not getting it. And she said, it is important for you to nurture that relationship with the gods because there will be times when that relationship will support you when a human cannot. And I'm definitely not, and she wasn't alluding to the fact of like, stuff people, I don't need them, I'll disappear into, just talking to the gods. But I think that aspect of having that as another support circle around our human support circle can be really beneficial. And Blue Barite, like you said, Kyle, it's very like Celestite in that kind of celestial energy. Angelite would be another one. If you haven't worked with Blue Barite, Celestite and Angelite, it's that real kind of nurturing and higher communication, not just person to person, but person to spirit as well.
Yeah.
2 things. First, both of you have said stuff. And as an American, it's not a thing that we have here. And I totally want to start saying that because I find it super charming. So thank you for that. Second, Kyle, you mentioned that your Blue Barite was from Spain. And Adam, the necklace that you showed earlier, I think looked Moroccan.
Yeah, to be honest, I bought this as a pendant. So I'm not too Ofra who wrapped it for me. I don't know where she sourced it from, but yeah, could be Moroccan, definitely.
It's
Is
beautiful. It has like those really thin, transparent blades.
yeah, definitely.
But I think
Yeah,
originally the first place blue barite was found, was discovered, was in Colorado, here in the United States. And the crystals look very different than the ones either of you showed. They're kind of chunky and like thick and like Kyle said, very heavy. But they're yeah, a little bit tabular, but just really, really thick, large single crystals. They don't have that sort of like the Moroccan ones have a little bit more fan-like appearance. Kyle, your Spanish cluster is like kind of halfway in between. I just find that so fascinating how it can express itself in different ways.
Yeah, I actually got to hold at my crystal wholesaler job just last week. I forgot to bring it. I actually had permission to an Australian barite, blue barite cluster from New South Wales, and it had like double terminated like points. So like all of the crystals were these like almost like an anvil or a hammer. Like they had that like double pointed shape, and there were lots of them, and they had these zones between dark blue and soft blue. Really, really cool. Something I hadn't seen before. And I think this is what's really cool about barite and that understanding that we don't know anything is that it forms so weirdly, so differently everywhere in the world. It's going to be different. And there's so many other colors. There isn't just blue, people. There are so many other colors of barite that would take so long to cover in more than just an hour.
I'm just scanning through my crystal collection now, and I don't think I have tumbled barite. Does barite tumble well?
I think it's one of
Um,
those soft ones.
it is. I have one piece, but it's hand polished, so it couldn't go in like a tumbler. So it's a little bit it's not perfectly smooth and round. It's a little bit like flat kind of all the way around. So they made sort of a tumbled shape, but it was all hand polished. Yeah. And it looks very much like how Celestite looks when it's been polished, if it's blue. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Carl, I might ask you if you can explain what the Mohs scale is, and then do you know what the Mohs hardness of barite would be?
yeah, absolutely. It falls at about a three, 3.5. The Mohs scale of hardness, this is actually really important to know with the Mohs scale of hardness. People see it as like a line that goes up. But what's true about the hardness scale is it actually is more of an exponential line going up. Like 4 is multiples harder than 3, 5 is multiples harder than 4, and it goes up really dramatically, especially when you get to 8, 9 to 10 in the hardness scale. Diamond is like 100 times harder than corundum. Like it's quite a dramatic shift on how it goes up. And so being a 3, 3.5, super soft, heavy but soft. And so you actually lose a lot in the tumbling process. You'll actually like it's not worth it. And if barite isn't kept as a specimen, then they actually use it for the minerals within for industry. Barium,
Mm.
crush it all down.
I'm kind of coming to a bit of an idea in my head. You know, a lot of the time we're like, well, how do we use this crystal? And the reason I was asking about tumbling it, and this jewelry piece is a bit unique because it's a raw piece. It's kind of, but you don't. It's not blue barite. You're not really going to find oodles and oodles of jewelry in it.
No,
But what we've been talking about, the theme of today, as well as communication and thought, has been take some time out. And it's almost as though you have to take some time out and delicately get your blue barite and sit with it or pop it on your throat chakra. It's not one you can whack in your pocket. It's not one you can wrap around your arm and just go about your day. It's almost like the crystal forces you into the lesson we've been talking about today, doesn't it?
that is
That's clever.
such an amazing way of putting it. That is honestly, I want that on a t-shirt.
I don't know how to
Not every
summarize that down
crystal is
to a
meant for
few
tumbling.
catchwords, but we'll try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
What one other thing I will throw in, one of the things I love doing is I love bringing in crystals with essential oils. There's a really strong correspondence between blue barite and a Japanese oil called hinoki. Now, hinoki is from a cypress tree. It's a cypress wood tree. And the hinoki trees are really, really honored in Japan. They grow very direct and upright, and they're very, very strong. And they're often used to build religious buildings and pagodas and things like that because of their durability. Now, I hate using this word when I describe the essential oil, but the influence of the essential oil is very Zen. I know that sounds so badly stereotypical Japanese, but it is a real Zen one. But what I find, it also works really well with the throat chakra because it allows us to be calm, but like Kai was talking, very direct, to say the right words. And sometimes, I'm sure we've all met them and we all know them in our lives. Some people like to say one sentence over about 18 paragraphs. And this is really about getting direct and powerful with your words, so that you're effective in your communication and it's not lost as well. So diffusing that or even anointing a little bit diluted on your throat chakra while you work with your blue barite or while you meditate with it or just during Mercury retrograde, I think will be really supportive as well.
I love that. It's such a great fragrance too.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice and subtle. Again, it's not one that if you have it diffusing in the house, you do sometimes have to pause to see if you can actually smell the aroma. But I think that, again, that's why it ties in with blue barite. You've got to stop, and pause. It's not going to be smack bang in your face as well. Yeah. Well, I think blue barite is a crystal that's going to navigate a few people through this Mercury retrograde. There might be a bit of scrambling for people trying to find some blue barite quickly. It's not one that everyone will have in their collection, but hopefully our confab today has helped you to realize what an asset it can be, not only in Mercury retrograde, but we've got to talk all the time. We've got to communicate, so it's good to have around. We'll see you next week on Crystal Confab when we dive into another magical gift of Mother Earth. Until then, take care and blessed be.
Bye.
Bye.